My daughter-in-law called me mom right before she tried to lock me away. That's the line that still echoes in my chest, sharp as a splinter under skin. It was a Tuesday, quiet, cloudy, the kind of day where the world feels soft around the edges, when those words finally found their truth. And let me tell you, baby, nothing prepares you for betrayal delivered with a smile. I remember the moment like it's stitched into the fabric of my bones. I was sitting at my kitchen table, a mug of ginger tea warming my hands, still tender from the surgery I'd had weeks before. My body felt fragile, but my spirit was trying its hardest to rise again. That's when Emily walked in, my daughter-in-law. Pretty girl. Polished. Smart in all the ways people admire and manipulative in the ways only time can reveal. She leaned down and kissed my cheek lightly. "Morning, Mom," she said, her voice sweet, smooth. Too smooth. And I smiled back. Because I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe she saw me as family. But now I know she only said Mom when she wanted something. I should have felt it then, the quiet wrongness in the room. But love blinds you. Hope blinds you. And mothers, well, we are the most blind of all when it comes to our children, even the ones we marry into. She sat across from me, crossing her legs slowly like someone posing for a picture. Her perfume smelled faintly of vanilla and fresh money, an expensive sweetness. "You should rest more," she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "You've been pushing yourself too hard." I only hummed in reply. My stitches still pulled when I moved. My hands trembled a little when I lifted my cup. But I was healing, and that alone felt like a victory. I didn't know then that she'd already made plans to take everything from me. Plans that involved my house, my future, my freedom, and my son. But before I tell you how deep that betrayal cut, I need to take you back to before all this happened, before that vanilla perfume started. Smelling like danger, before the word Mom became an insult in disguise. Because once upon a time, I truly believed she loved me. People forget that peace can be a fragile thing. Mine lived in a small, white brick house on Maplewood Lane. Nothing fancy. A 2-bedroom place with creaky floors in winter and a porch swing that groaned like an old woman. But it was mine. My hands painted the walls. My flowers lined the walkway. My memories lived in every corner. After my husband, Charles, passed 8 years ago, the house became my refuge. I learned to cook for one. I learned to sleep on one side of the bed. I learned to breathe again. And when my son, Daniel, married Emily, I let myself believe I'd gained a daughter. Emily had a way of making people feel chosen. She hugged tight. She laughed loudly. She brought candles to my house, lavender in spring, cinnamon in fall. She'd say, "Mom, nobody makes stew like you," or "Mom, you're the strongest woman I know." The first time she called me Mom, I cried in my bathroom. Not because I was lonely, but because it felt like a piece of healing I didn't expect to experience again. I'd lost the chance to have a daughter of my own. Life had its own plans about that. So when Emily used the word Mom, my heart softened in places that hadn't softened in years. My relationship with my son had changed too, but I told myself it was normal. Daniel was busy with work. Newly married. That's how life goes. And even when he didn't visit as often, even when he didn't call as much, even when decisions about the family seemed to pass through Emily first, I told myself, this is what happens when your babies grow up. The surgery came suddenly, a complication with my gallbladder. It wasn't supposed to be serious, but healing hit me harder than expected. I couldn't move around much. I couldn't shop or cook. So Emily stepped in. She brought groceries. She cleaned my kitchen. She tucked blankets over my legs. Every day, she said, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll take care of everything." Her voice was tender enough to stitch any wound shut. But I didn't realize she was stitching something else to a trap. Because as I lay in that bed, half asleep from pain medication, she wasn't just tending to my house. She was tending to my paperwork, my mail, my finances. My son later told me she'd said I was too weak to handle things, that it was for my own good. I didn't know any of that then. All I knew was that my house smelled clean, my bills were paid, and my daughter-in-law called me Mom with a smile warm enough to make me grateful. Emily had a way of making you forget to question her. And that's the most dangerous kind of person in the world. It started with a phone call. I remember exactly where I was, sitting on the sofa, wrapped in the crocheted blanket Charles's mother had made decades ago. The late afternoon light spilled across the room, soft and golden. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was my doctor's office. They confirmed my follow-up appointment for the next week. But then the receptionist asked, just to confirm, "Will your guardian be attending with you again?" Guardian? A strange coldness moved through my chest. My what? I asked, my voice cracking like thin ice. Oh, your daughter-in-law? She said she's your legal caregiver during your recovery. Legal caregiver. The words didn't fit together. I hung up the phone slowly. My heart felt too heavy, too slow. I tried to convince myself it was simply miscommunication. Emily was probably overstepping, being helpful the way she always was. But something about that moment, the way the air suddenly felt tight, the way my stomach rolled, the way a whisper of dread brushed the back of my neck. It was the first sign, the first crack in the facade. And sometimes, baby, all it takes is one small crack for the whole truth to pour through. That evening, Emily came by with a pot of chicken noodle soup. She breezed into my kitchen like she owned the air itself, setting the pot down, humming some tune from the radio, opening my cabinets without asking. She always did that. At first, it felt like closeness, like family. Now, every movement felt rehearsed. Long day, she asked, taking off her coat and draping it neatly over a chair. I watched her for a moment. She moved too confidently, too comfortably, like someone settling into a space they expected to inherit. Doctor's office called, I said softly. She froze only for a second, but I saw it. Then the smile returned. Oh? What did they say? They asked if my guardian would be coming. The spoon in her hand paused mid-stir. Then she let out a light, dismissive laugh. Oh, that. She waved her hand. Mom, you were practically unconscious after your surgery. They needed someone to sign the release papers. I was just helping. Helping. That word can be poison when it rolls off the wrong lips. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to accuse her. I didn't want to seem ungrateful. She had driven me home from the hospital, after all. She had taken care of my meals. She had cleaned my sheets. But something in her voice felt too practiced. Like she'd rehearsed this excuse. She served me a bowl of soup, placed a napkin under it with gentle care, and touched my hand lightly. You don't need to worry about anything. I've got you. The warmth of her fingers didn't match the chill in her eyes. 2 days later, Daniel came by after work. My boy. My only child. The person I'd spent decades protecting, loving, guiding. He sat in my favorite armchair, the one his father used to nap in on Sunday afternoons. I noticed he didn't meet my eyes the way he used to. Mom, he began, clearing his throat. Emily says you've been stressed. Stressed? I repeated. He nodded. She said you might be overwhelmed handling everything alone. Handling what? I felt my chest tighten. Daniel, I've been healing, yes. But I'm not helpless. He shifted uncomfortably. No one said you were. Helpless. But they had. Behind my back. To a doctor. To a receptionist. Maybe even to each other. Your wife told the doctor's office she was my guardian. I watched his face carefully. He frowned. She said that was just a misunderstanding. Is it? Something flickered in his expression, guilt, maybe. Or maybe uncertainty. Mom, Emily only wants what's best for you. There it was. The seed. The part where your own child starts seeing you through someone else's eyes. I didn't push further. I didn't want to be the kind of mother who clings, who questions every action, who becomes a burden. But the feeling in my stomach wouldn't leave. A whisper. A warning. Something is wrong. A week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. White. Thin. Nothing unusual. But the return address made my blood run cold. First Federal Bank. My mortgage lender. My hands shook a little as I opened it. Inside, a single sheet. This is a courtesy reminder regarding your requested account access update. A representative will contact you shortly to verify details. Requested account access? By who? I hadn't called the bank in months. My heart thudded against my ribs. I dialed the number on the letter. After verifying my identity, the woman on the phone said, "Yes, ma'am, we received a request to add your daughter-in-law as a co-signer on your account. The request is awaiting confirmation." I felt dizzy. A co-signer. On my house. My only asset. My life. My voice shook. "Cancel it. Immediately." "Of course, ma'am. We will remove the pending request." I hung up and pressed my hand to my mouth, trying to breathe. Emily hadn't asked me. She hadn't mentioned anything. She had gone directly to the bank. And Daniel, did he know? Or had she convinced him too? The walls of my house felt narrower that day. Like something was closing in. I wish I could tell you I'm the kind of woman who never snoops. But fear makes you do things you never thought you'd do. Emily came by in the afternoons, always using the guest room to work remotely. She'd bring her laptop, her fancy pens, her big leather tote. That day, she went out to take a phone call. Her voice was hushed, sharp, businesslike. When I heard her footsteps fade toward the front porch, something inside me broke open. A mix of dread and adrenaline. I stood up, slowly, quietly. I walked down the hallway to the room she used. Her purse sat open on the bed. Papers were stacked neatly on the desk. And the drawer she always glanced at, always kept closed, was slightly ajar. Just a centimeter, but enough. I pulled it open, and there it was. A folder. Thick. Blue. Labeled. Property and care agreements. My hands went numb as I opened it. The first document was a power of attorney, with my name printed at the top, and Daniel's signature at the bottom. My son's handwriting. Shaky. Uneven. But real. My breath hitched. The next paper, a nursing home application. Already filled out. Already signed. Age, 58. Condition, medically declining. Recommended care, long-term placement. Responsible guardian, Emily Carter. My daughter-in-law listed herself as my guardian. My throat closed so tight I could barely breathe. And the final page. A realtor's information sheet. Notes scribbled in Emily's handwriting. House worth $340K. Good profit. Discuss listing timeline. Clear by February. My house. My life. My everything. Reduced to scribbles in someone else's pen. The folder slipped from my fingers and scattered across the floor like a broken truth. I stood there shaking, one hand pressed to my chest. A single whisper escaped me. Oh dear God, everything made sense now. The sweetness, the caretaking, the insistence on calling me mom, the pressure on Daniel. She wasn't helping me. She was planning to erase me. And the worst part? She almost succeeded. I don't know how long I stood there, shaking in that guest room. Long enough for the dust in the sunlight to settle. Long enough for my heart to split open and spill something dark and heavy inside me. Something worse than fear. Realization. Emily was not trying to help me heal. She was trying to take my home, my freedom, my life, while I was still breathing in it. I knelt slowly to gather the papers scattered across the carpet, my fingers trembling so badly they slipped. Every page I touched felt like a betrayal made tangible, ink and signatures arranged against me. I found the power of attorney form again. My name typed neatly. Daniel's signature, slanted, hurried. I knew that handwriting. He used to write like that when he was anxious. My boy had been nervous when he signed this. Why? Why had he signed something so dangerous? Had she pressured him? Tricked him? Lied to him? My breathing grew shallow. My vision blurred. And that's when I heard the footsteps. Emily's. Light. Quick. Coming back down the hallway. I shoved everything back into the folder, slid the drawer shut, and moved across the room just as she opened the door. She paused when she saw me standing there, my hand on the chair for balance. "Mom," she said with that same syrup-sweet tone that suddenly made my skin crawl. "Are you okay? You look pale." I forced a smile. The kind that feels glued on. "Just felt dizzy," I whispered. She rushed toward me, placing a steadying hand under my arm. "Oh, sweetheart," she murmured, guiding me to sit. "You really shouldn't be moving around like this. I keep telling Daniel we need to think about long-term care. You're just pushing yourself too much." My fingers tightened around the armrest. She said long-term care the same way one might say vacation plans. with detached excitement, with decision already made. I swallowed hard. I don't need long-term care. Her lips pressed into a thin line, an irritated, controlled line. She changed her voice slightly lower, more authoritative. Mom, sometimes you don't see what you need. Sometimes others see it for you. Something inside me snapped, but I stayed quiet. I let her leave the room. Let her think she still had control. Because suddenly, I realized something very important. She had no idea I knew. And that gave me power. That evening, after Emily left, I called Daniel. He didn't pick up the first time. Or the second. He texted instead, "Long day. Can we talk tomorrow?" But tomorrow would be too late. By tomorrow, Emily could have moved to the next step. I called again. On the fourth ring, he answered. His voice was tired. Soft. Almost defeated. "Mom? Everything okay?" My breath trembled. "Daniel, I need to ask you something." "Of course," he said gently. I took a long, unsteady breath. "Did you sign power of attorney paperwork?" For me, silence. A silence so thick I could hear my heartbeat cracking through it. "Mom," he exhaled sharply. "I didn't want to upset you." I closed my eyes. "So you did?" "Yes," he whispered. I held the phone tighter, my pulse pounding. "Why?" He hesitated. "Emily said it was temporary. Just to help you during recovery. She said you agreed, before the surgery." My chest burned. "Daniel, I never agreed to that. Not once." Another pause. I heard the truth begin to dawn in him like a slow, painful sunrise. "But she told me, she said you wanted her to handle things while you rested." My voice shook, but my words were steady. "She lied." I heard a small sound on his end, shock, maybe. Or guilt. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought she was protecting you." "Daniel," I whispered, my eyes filling, "your wife is trying to put me in a nursing home." "What?" His voice jumped, full of disbelief. "She filled out an application. She listed herself as my guardian. She tried to add herself as co-signer on my house." "Mom, no, Emily wouldn't, she would." My voice broke. And she did. I could hear his breathing shift fast, shallow. I imagined him running a hand through his hair, pacing. He always did that when he was overwhelmed. "I didn't know," he whispered again, softer this time. "I swear on my life, Mom. I didn't know." Tears slid down my cheeks, warm and bitter. "I know," I said. "But now you do." There was a trembling pause before he spoke again. "I'll come over first thing in the morning. We'll talk. We'll fix this." "Okay." My voice felt like it belonged to someone else. But after we hung up, I didn't feel better. Because I knew Daniel was stuck between two loyalties. And Emily? She wasn't the type to give up quietly. The next morning, before Daniel could arrive, Emily showed up early. Too early. She walked in without knocking, her usual habit. But today, her steps were sharper. Her expression tighter. "Morning, Mom," she said, but her tone was off. Too bright. Too practiced. She sat on the couch across from me, smoothing her skirt with slow, deliberate strokes. Then she looked at me with a smile that had no warmth. "We need to talk," she said. A chill rippled over my skin. "About what?" I asked softly. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "You're not getting better. And you're not safe living alone." My jaw clenched. "I'm doing just fine." "No," she said, her eyes narrowing. "You're not." That was the moment her mask slipped. Her voice lost all the honey, all the tenderness, all the pretend affection. "Daniel and I have already made arrangements. You can fight it, but it won't change anything." A quiet, cold rage rose inside me. "You think you can decide my life?" I whispered. She laughed softly. Not kindly, not nervously, but mockingly. "You're not as strong as you think you are," she said. "And once the doctors file the evaluation, no one is going to believe that you can take care of yourself." I stared at her, this woman who once brought me birthday cakes, who hugged me when I cried about Charles, who sat at my kitchen table calling me mom like it meant something. Now she looked at me like I was an obstacle to be removed. She stood up slowly. "The paperwork is already in motion," she said, picking up her purse. "You can't stop it." But as she walked toward the door, I said the one thing she didn't expect. I already called my lawyer. She froze mid-step. Her head turned sharply, eyes wide. I held her gaze, steady and unflinching. And I know everything. Her throat moved as she swallowed. For the first time, she looked afraid. Emily stood frozen, her hand still gripping the purse strap, knuckles whitening. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The house felt too quiet, the kind of quiet that comes before a storm breaks open. Then she recovered, too quickly. Her expression shifted into something calm, almost amused, as if she'd rehearsed for this moment too. "A lawyer," she said softly, walking back toward me. "Mom, who told you to do that? Daniel? Did he tell you to call someone?" Her voice was sugar again, but her eyes were knives. I straightened my back. I don't need anyone to tell me when I'm being betrayed. That word, betrayed, hit her like a slap. Her face hardened. "Don't be dramatic. We're trying to help you." "No," I whispered. "You're trying to get rid of me." She opened her mouth to argue, but a car pulled into the driveway at that exact moment. Daniel's car. I saw her flinch. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw fear crack through her confidence. She turned toward the door, smoothing her hair, adjusting her blouse, trying to fix the mask she wore around my son. But masks don't stay on well when the truth starts leaking through the seams. Daniel stepped into the living room with hurried steps, worry already etched across his face. "Mom," he said, kneeling beside me immediately. "Are you okay?" Emily forced a smile. "Daniel, we were just talking, stop," he said quietly, not looking at her. "Mom told me everything." Emily's smile faltered. What? What do you mean everything?" Daniel stood up slowly, turning toward her, and for the first time I saw my son's face without the fog of manipulation clouding it. He looked hurt, angry, awake. "You lied to me," he said. "You told me Mom asked for the power of attorney. You said she didn't want to deal with the house while recovering." Emily swallowed, her eyes starting between us. "Daniel, you misunderstood." "No," he said firmly. "You made me sign it when I was exhausted from working nights. You said it was temporary, that Mom approved it." She stepped closer. "I was trying to protect your mother. She's not stable yet." I stood. My knees shook, but my voice didn't. "Don't talk about me like I'm not in the room." Emily finally snapped. Her composure broke like thin glass. "Fine," she shouted. "You want the truth? You can't live alone. You can barely walk some days. You forget things, you drop things, I survived a surgery," I said sharply. "Not a stroke. Not dementia. A surgery." Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose, breathing hard. "Emily, a nursing home application? Without telling me." Her jaw tightened. "You work full-time. You were never going to take care of her. Someone had to think about the future." "No," he said. "Someone wanted the house." Her eyes flashed. "That house is falling apart. Selling it would have helped us, helped all of us." "There it is," I whispered. "The true motive. Not care. Not concern. Profit." She turned to me, her voice dripping with false sweetness again. "You should be grateful I was willing to manage everything. You're too young to act like an invalid, but too old to handle things alone." "I'm 58, I snapped. 58, Emily. Not 98. The room went silent. Daniel looked at her with something I'd never seen in him before. Disgust. "We need space," he said finally, stepping back from her. "Please leave for now." Emily stared at him, shock widening her eyes. "You're choosing her over me?" "I'm choosing the truth," he said. Her lip trembled, but not from sadness, from fury. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Both of you." And with that, she snatched her purse, stormed out, and slammed the door so hard the picture frames rattled. When the sound faded, Daniel sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "Mom, I'm so sorry." I sat beside him, touching his shoulder. "We'll figure it out," I said softly. But not alone. Not this time. The next day, I met with Ms. Harding, my lawyer. A sharp, steady woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and the kind of voice that could carve through any nonsense. She listened quietly as I explained everything. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "You're lucky you found the papers when you did. Another week or two, and she would have moved forward with the guardianship request. My stomach churned. Guardianship. That word tasted like prison. She can't still try, can she? I asked. Oh, she can, Miss Harding said calmly. But she won't succeed. Not anymore. She slid a document toward me. This is a revocation notice. It cancels the power of attorney immediately. My heart felt lighter already. And Daniel, he needs to sign acknowledging the revocation. He won't have any authority over your decisions anymore. I nodded. And this, she handed me another paper, is a no trespassing order. You mentioned she had a key to your home. Yes, I whispered. We'll handle that. There was something else she said after that, something that made my blood run cold and hot at the same time. In my experience, people like your daughter-in-law rarely stop on their own. You should prepare. Prepare for what? I asked. For a fight. Emily's last attempt that night, long after sunset, I heard a car pull into my driveway. Daniel wasn't expected. No one else should have been there. I peeked through the blinds. Emily. She got out of the car fast. Too fast. Her movements jerky, frantic. She marched straight to my porch and started banging on the door. Open the door, she shouted. You owe me an explanation. Her voice sliced through the quiet neighborhood. I didn't open it. Instead, I called Daniel. He arrived within minutes, breathless, stepping between Emily and my home. Emily, stop, he said firmly. You need to leave. Her voice cracked with desperation. You're letting her turn you against me. No, he said. You did that yourself. She's manipulating you. She's lying. Daniel pulled a paper from his pocket, the revocation notice. Emily, the power of attorney is gone. The house is not yours. The decisions are not yours. You need to accept that. She stared at the document as if it were a death sentence. Then her expression twisted rage, humiliation, disbelief all tangled together. This isn't over, she whispered. I will not let her ruin our future. Daniel stepped closer. No, you almost ruined ours. Emily's eyes filled not with sadness, but hatred. She turned, stormed off the porch, and drove away so fast her tires screeched. That was the last time she ever stepped foot on my property. Because the next morning, the court order went through. Emily Carter was legally banned from my home. And for the first time in weeks, I breathed without fear. When the court order finally went through, I expected relief, and I felt it, yes. But I didn't expect what happened next. Because family business, as they say, never stays inside the family for long. And when the truth came out, it didn't trickle. It spread like wildfire. 2 days after the court order, I had my first follow-up appointment. Daniel drove me. As soon as I entered the clinic, the receptionist, Sandra, a sweet woman with soft curls and a habit of chewing peppermint gum, looked at me differently. Not pity, not concern, respect. Mrs. Turner, she said, lowering her voice. I heard you handled things. Good for you. I blinked. You heard. She gently tapped her computer screen. Your daughter-in-law called the office, asking for copies of your medical evaluation. Again. The nurse told her she no longer had legal access. A small smile tugged the corner of Sandra's mouth. She wasn't happy. I sighed. I'm sorry you all got dragged into this. She leaned in, whispering, oh honey, people like her drag everyone into things. But people like you drag yourself right back out. Her words warmed me in a strange way, like a balm I didn't realize I needed. And that was only the beginning. When I stepped outside my house later that week to water my lilies, Mrs. Crawford from next door waddled over slowly, holding onto her cane like it was a third leg. Well, she huffed. I knew something was wrong when that daughter-in-law of yours kept parking in your driveway like she owned the place. I blinked. You noticed that? Noticed? She scoffed. Honey, that woman was walking around your porch measuring things with a tape measure 2 weeks ago. My heart dropped. What? She nodded firmly. I asked her what she was doing. She said she was planning ahead. I thought she meant for renovations. Renovations? No. She'd been planning a sale. I closed my eyes for a second, studying myself. Mrs. Crawford touched my arm softly. But I'm glad you showed her you're not one to be played with. That sentence spread through my bones like warm electricity. I wasn't someone to be played with. Maybe I needed to remember that. Meanwhile, Daniel's world was coming undone in a different way. Word of the court order reached Emily's mother, who called my son the same night. Daniel sat in my kitchen replaying the conversation, his hands wrapped around a cooling mug of coffee. She accused me, he said quietly. Said I humiliated Emily. Said I tore the family apart. And what did you tell her? I asked. He looked up, eyes red, but determined. I told her Emily was the one who tried to tear this family apart. He shook his head, running a hand through his hair like he had 1,000 times as a boy. I keep thinking about the night she had me sign those papers. I was exhausted. I had just gotten home from a 13-hour shift. She shoved the forms in front of me and said it was routine. She said you had agreed. His voice broke, and I believed her. I touched his hand softly. She manipulated you, sweetheart. That's what people like her do. But I should have questioned it, he whispered. I should have known. You know now, I said. And that's what matters. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the son I raised. The boy who helped me wash dishes. The boy who cried when his father died. The boy who'd forgotten his strength but was slowly remembering again. He squeezed my hand. I'm not letting anyone hurt you again, Mom. And that was a promise he kept. Over the next week, Emily tried desperately to control the narrative. She visited Daniel's workplace to confront him in the parking lot. His coworkers saw everything. She told people I was unstable, paranoid, mentally declining. But she didn't expect Daniel to start telling the truth. He stopped her lies like a hammer smashing glass. No, he told everyone calmly. My mother is perfectly capable. And my wife tried to take her home. People talk. And talk. And talk. It didn't take long before Emily was no longer the sweet, charming girl everyone adored. She became the woman who tried to send her mother-in-law to a nursing home at 58. That reputation doesn't wash off easily. Not in a small town. Not anywhere. Then there was the morning when someone unexpected knocked on my door. A young man stood there tall, with tired eyes and a polite posture. Mrs. Turner, he asked softly. Yes, I'm Emily's brother. My stomach tightened, but he held up his hands quickly. I'm not here to cause trouble. I want to apologize. I blinked in confusion. For what? For my sister. His voice cracked. She's always been like this. Manipulative. Charming. She takes and takes until someone finally tells her no. And then she breaks. He swallowed hard, looking down at the ground. We grew up in a house where everything had to be perfect. Emily learned young that affection came only when she performed. And control gave her security. But she crossed a line with you. A terrible line. I stood silent. No one expects the villain's family to deliver their confession. He looked up at me with genuine sadness. I'm sorry she hurt you. Truly. My throat tightened. Thank you, I said quietly. Before he left, he added one last thing. She told our mother she was going to be set for life once your house sold. Those words left a deeper wound than I expected. Because for the first time, it wasn't just manipulation. It was greed. Cold, calculated greed. A few days later, Daniel told me Emily moved out of their apartment. She didn't take furniture. She didn't take keepsakes. She didn't even take the wedding album. She only took clothes, shoes, purses, designer handbags, symbols of a life she'd wanted, but not earned. Daniel found one thing left behind, the realtor's business card. On the back, in her handwriting, it said, "Once the house sells, everything will get easier." He sat at my kitchen table holding the card like a piece of evidence. He whispered, "She didn't love me, Mom. She loved the idea of a better life. And she thought you were the obstacle." I placed my hand over his. "You deserved better," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "So did you." And then came the moment I'll never forget. A week later, I walked into the local grocery store, picking out apples for a pie. Mrs. Granger, the store owner, shuffled toward me. "I heard what happened," she said, pressing a warm hand on mine. "You're stronger than most, dear." Before I could respond, another woman stepped forward. Then another. And another. Some offered soft smiles. Others shook their heads in disbelief. But they all said the same thing: "We're glad you're still standing." And in that moment, surrounded by simple kindness, I realized something powerful. Emily might have tried to take my home, but she hadn't taken my dignity. She hadn't taken my voice. She hadn't taken my place in this world. People saw the truth. And the truth always has a way of settling where it belongs. For weeks after Emily's departure, the house felt different. Not haunted. Not heavy. Just peaceful. As if the walls themselves had been holding their breath, waiting for danger to pass. The morning light looked brighter through the kitchen window. The air felt cleaner. Even the floorboards seemed to creak less. For the first time in a long while, I felt safe in my home again. Safe in my own life again. Recovery, I learned, doesn't happen all at once. Some days, I woke up with energy, ready to water the garden, reorganize cabinets, bake my cinnamon bread. Other days, I moved slower, sitting on the porch with a blanket over my knees, watching the world with the gentle patience that only comes after surviving something painful. But every day, I healed a little more. Daniel checked in regularly, sometimes too regularly. He would bring groceries, mow the lawn, fix loose screws in the cabinet doors. He'd sit on the porch swing with me for an hour, talking about work, worries, or just the weather. One afternoon, he said something that broke my heart and mended it at the same time. "Mom, I didn't protect you like I should have. But I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere." I touched his cheek gently, like I did when he was a little boy. "You didn't fail me," I whispered. "You were lied to. Manipulated. That could happen to anyone." He nodded slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. "That won't ever happen again," he promised. And I believed him. I found myself thinking about Emily sometimes. Not with anger, though I would have been justified. Not with pity, though some might say she deserved it. No, what I felt was recognition. She was a woman who believed control meant security. Manipulation meant love. Winning meant worth. But life doesn't reward those things. Life rewards truth. And peace. And quiet courage. So instead of hating her, I began to understand her, understanding without excusing. Forgiving without forgetting. Because holding on to bitterness would have been another form of imprisonment. And I had fought too hard to reclaim my freedom. One crisp autumn afternoon, Daniel and I sat on the porch drinking hot tea. The leaves on the maple tree were turning gold and crimson. A soft breeze rustled the branches overhead. "Mom," he said gently, "I filed for divorce." I reached for his hand. I know that wasn't easy. He shook his head, staring at the horizon. I thought love meant standing by someone no matter what. But love isn't blindness. It's honesty. And Emily didn't love me the way a partner should. The pain in his voice was quiet but real. "You deserve someone who loves you," I said softly. "Not someone who uses you." He took a deep breath. "Can I be honest?" "Always." He paused, then whispered, "I was ashamed. Ashamed I couldn't see what she was doing. Ashamed I let her get so close to taking everything from you." My heart tightened. "Oh, Daniel," I said, leaning close. "We all lose ourselves when we want to be loved. That's not shameful. That's human." He let out a shaky breath. "You're the strongest person I know," he said. "I want to be more like you." I smiled, brushing his shoulder gently. "Strength doesn't always look loud," I said. "Sometimes it's just waking up and choosing peace over chaos. Truth over comfort. Yourself over fear." Miss Harding helped me secure everything. All legal documents updated, house deed protected, emergency contacts verified, a lockbox installed, my medical rights formally registered. Daniel took the spare house key Emily used to have. He had found it among her things. We threw it away together. I felt something loosen in me as the key hit the trash bin. Something symbolic. Something final. That small metal piece had represented access, intrusion, threat. Now it was nothing but waste. Every morning, I started a habit. Sit at the kitchen table. Light one lavender candle. Write one sentence in a small brown journal. Some days it was simple. I'm still here. Other days, deeper. Freedom feels like sunlight after a long winter. Writing became a way to breathe. A way to reclaim parts of myself I didn't even know I'd lost during those months of quiet invasion. I cooked again. I tidied my garden. I joined a senior walking group, though I was the youngest by a mile, and they teased me kindly about it. But the biggest change? I felt no fear in my own home anymore. No shadows behind me. No dread walking down the hall. No anxiety opening my mail. Just life. Simple, ordinary, beautiful life. It was inevitable. One chilly morning, weeks later, Daniel received a text. "Emily, I want to talk." We were at my house when his phone buzzed. He showed me the screen, waiting for my reaction. I breathed steadily and said, "That's between you and her. But you're safe now." "And so am I." He nodded, shoulders relaxing. He replied with a single sentence, "There's nothing left to talk about." She never showed up at my house again. The court order made sure of that. And that was how peace finally settled back into my walls, slow, steady, and earned. Life didn't go back to what it used to be. It became something better. I learned to trust myself again, to speak up sooner, to read the small signs, to study my own voice when someone tried to silence it. And Daniel, he started therapy. He rebuilt his life brick by brick. He spent holidays with me, laughing again, healing in his own way. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace drinking cocoa, he looked at me with a softness I'd never forget. "You saved yourself, Mom," he said. "I just followed your lead." I smiled. "No," I whispered. "We saved each other." Some nights, when the house is quiet and the moonlight rests soft against the window pane, I sit in my living room and think about everything that happened. Not with bitterness, not with fear, but with a kind of gentle wisdom I didn't have before all this. I think about how easily trust can be twisted, how silence can become a weapon, how love, when placed in the wrong hands, can turn into a leash. I think about Emily sometimes. Not often. Just enough to remember the lesson she left behind. Not everyone who calls you family comes with family intentions. Some come with open arms. Some come with hidden pockets and careful smiles. Some come with plans written in pencil, plans you were never meant to read. But here's the truth I carry now. She didn't break me. She didn't take my home. She didn't take my voice. If anything, she sharpened it. Because the moment I discovered the papers in that drawer, the moment I saw my name printed on documents meant to strip me of my freedom, I realized something powerful. I might have been recovering. I might have been tired. I might have been vulnerable. But I was never weak. And I will never again let anyone decide otherwise. This house, my house, is filled with memories, laughter, the echo of my husband's footsteps, the warmth of my son learning who he is again. It is mine. And I am still standing in it. Still choosing peace. Still choosing truth. Still choosing myself. So if you're listening to my story right now, if any part of your life feels like someone else is trying to take the pen from your hand and write your ending for you, baby, lean in. Hear me clearly. You have the right to your own life, your own choices, your own freedom. And nobody, not a daughter-in-law, not a spouse, not a sibling, gets to claim ownership over your story. Not while you still have breath in your lungs. Not ever. Now tell me, if you found papers like the ones I did, would you have had the courage to fight back? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories like this one. I'll be right here, waiting to share the next one with you.